The role stems from consumer focused funds like us because, as I said, this is a lot of self care journey that comes in, which is equivalent to a consumer business.
Right.
Healthcare funds do understand that women's health has been neglected so far. To at least the opportunity is large. I think a third very interesting, like in the global markets where there are funds dedicated to investing in women's health,
Right.
because they do see the opportunity being large. I do foresee that coming to India very soon, right? There's already enough chatter around a large part of the fund being dedicated to women's health in some cases. We do see women's health dedicated funds maybe emerging in the future.
Right.
So it is an all-encompassing opportunity view from the investor's side on women's health. And that's going to branch out into more and more investments coming this way.
That's super exciting. Hi, it's Navneet. Welcome to FemTech India podcast. This has to be my favorite episode as this is the first time we're going to talk about FemTech and women's health investment with India's leading firm. Yes, we all know that less than 2% of funding goes to women's health startups. At FemTech India, our mission has always been to create resources so we can drive more funding in the space. Today, I'm sitting down with Ankur Khaitan, who's a principal at Fireside Venture, where he focuses on early stage consumer brands and startups. Fireside Ventures, India's leading investment firm, specialize in investing in consumer brands. They have been actively investing in healthcare companies. Some of the most recent investments include companies like Gynoveda, Inito, Amaha, and Goodbug. The Indian femtech industry is projected to grow 4 billion by 2024. So let's hear from Ankur. He got some major insights to drop. So Ankur, can you share a little about women's health and femtech landscape and in terms of investment in India? Because we're seeing a lot of investors are bullish about this sector.
I think what makes us very bullish and investors like us bullish about the women's health, there are 3 or 4 very key underlying themes that's playing out.
Right.
I think one, there is a lot of recognition on the importance of women's health. So far, the larger society has neglected it, but there is a very strong awareness which has got built up, not only amongst the women community, but also the larger society to say that this is something which needs to be solved for.
Right.
And it's today the solutions that exist do not solve for it in a meaningful way. And the second, very important, is the entire service providers. The clinicians, including the gynacs, today recognize the fact that solutions are very episodic, but women's health require a holistic solution. And they're more than happy to walk that hard yard with companies who are innovating in this space.
Right.
On that note, the third most important is the innovation that's happening in this space. Today, what we see is pharma companies, the new age startups, or even digital therapeutics. Everybody is innovating solutions to solve for women's health in a holistic manner. I think one last point is the entire regulation.
Right.
Today, there are a lot of conducive regulations which are being either formed as policies, be it the ART Act, be it the insurance supporting the spends on women's health, which also makes us believe that today the recognition, even within the public infrastructure on the healthcare side, is large and strong enough to support women's health and the innovation that's happening in the women's health sector.
Right. No, that's great. I definitely see that landscape is evolving and finally women's health, femtech getting recognized as a category, which is huge untapped opportunity, right? So what are the areas do you potentially see in women's health growing? And despite there's a lot of potential, but we haven't seen funding in the sector, right? The funding has been a little slow. And why is that?
I think, Naveen, so let me break it down into 2 parts. The first one in terms of where do we see opportunities within women's health?
Right.
There are opportunities across the spectrum, but really if I break it down into one, the entire information asymmetry, right? Today, because women's health is a fairly new topic where recognition at large is building up, and not only amongst the women community, but society at large, there is an opportunity to create awareness, create education about women's health.
Right.
What it means is a lot of times the issues are misdiagnosed.
Right.
Can you create screeners? Can you create a proactive approach to tracking and making meaningful sense of the information on women's health, not just a satellite view, but really giving them very clear call to action? I think the second piece is around solutions, right? One of the investments we have is on Gynoveda, which is solving for fertility issues and PCOS issues at the root cause. So far, a lot of women's health issues have been addressed at a symptom level, and it may be on the back of the fact that people have not spoken about it, women have not been able to openly talk about it, the society has created a social taboo around, and a lot of R&D has been focused around addressing it at the symptom level.
Right.
It's important as more and more education and awareness gets built up, new age solutions to solve for it, be it in terms of things like breast cancer, be it in terms of the entire journey from conception to fertility to actually delivering and postpartum, things like menopause, right? I mean, those areas which require very holistic solution so far have not been approached that way.
Right.
It has been one-off solutions, and hence the experience has been very broken. I think the third and a very interesting play is around having a community, which is a non-judgmental approach to solving for women's health, going beyond the social taboos, going beyond just talking about bits and pieces of it, but solving for it by creating awareness, more importantly, looking at it from a very different lens.
Right.
What I mean by that is don't make women cautious about what they're going through, in their body and what they're thinking about it. Things like mental health around women's health, right? I mean, things associated with the fact that today, osteoporosis, osteopenia, I mean, it's assumed that these are issues which women will go through. Create a community where one can learn from the other's experience.
Right.
So to sum it up, I think the opportunity around diagnostic, the opportunity around solutions holistically, and around community are three areas which excites us on the women's health. Now, it could be either very deep episodic solutions. It could be around maintenance solutions like supplements, which are helping solve for and maintain some of these issues on a recurring basis, or it is about solving it through a very tech-led platform. I think your point around investments this specific field has seen, I think what I can tell you for sure is there is an increased interest that's coming in this area. We've all seen what IVF clinics has seen as an interest from private equity folks, right?
Right.
We've been very bullish on this space, and like us, a lot of other healthcare investors also do understand and recognize the fact that women's health is a large untapped opportunity.
Right.
There is a very clear need state that exists. So today's solutions just don't cut it, and hence for startups to meaningfully build and disrupt this space is leading into investments across stages.
Yeah.
And as we see more and more regulatory push, which is supporting this as well, we will see investments coming our way, and not just domestic capital, but also foreign capital, which has started to recognize the importance and the larger opportunity that's waiting to unfold in the women's health side. So while very momentarily the history could have been bleak in terms of investments, I do believe, and I'm actually seeing a lot of interest, and which will result into investments in the women's health side.
Quite an exciting time now, because I've also seen a lot of investors in India are talking about it. I think you and I had a conversation a lot of times that, I remember you first reached out to me because you were interested to, get involved in the ecosystem, and you wanted to understand what startups are building, right? So I think there's a definitely huge untapped opportunity. And I think for coming year, of course, the future will be women's health. If we look back 2-3 years back, we definitely saw a lot of funding coming post-pandemic, and then 2023 was the worst year in terms of investment in women's health, right? And why we didn't see that interest before, and what has changed now?
I think, 2023 did see a lot of deals on the IVF side.
Right.
We've seen what Indra IVF's going through, Nova, etc. So there's a lot of interest on a particular field within women's health. As far as early stage is concerned, again, these are possibly the most exciting times to be building in the women's health, because there is a lot of investors' interest.
Right.
Companies, and some of the companies in our portfolio, if I look at Gynoveda or Inito, which is on the women's health side, we are seeing a lot of interest, right? I think till the time you are building a solution which is truly solving for issues, and some of the issues which we were discussing a little earlier,
Right.
of looking at this as not just a Me Too solution, looking at this not just as a community engagement, but truly solving for a particular health issue within the larger spectrum
Right.
at a root cause level. Or if you're building something in diagnostic, not just giving a satellite view to women's health, or a health parameter, but truly a clear call to action. On that
Right.
note, maybe I can talk about Inito, which is a fertility monitor. Now, fertility monitors have existed in the past.
Right.
What's important now is when somebody is going through a fertility journey, they just don't want a satellite view. They want to understand which hormone, what kind of ovulation journey they are going through.
Yeah.
So, net till the time somebody is building very clear call to action in diagnostic or solving for a solution with the root cause level, we are seeing a lot of interest.
Right.
The third spectrum, where we do see a lot of interest coming in, maybe from late stage investors, is the whole infrastructure play on women's health, be it hospital chains which are solving for maternity,
Right.
or fertility clinics, which is now also extending into male fertility.
Right.
I think there is a very deep and large interest from different facets of the investor community across different areas of women's health.
Right.
We're seeing a lot of interest specifically on the breast cancer, ovarian cancer, etc. Supplements have always existed. There is a lot of entrepreneur action. There is a lot of interest across early stage to growth and late stage investors. Right. And what we believe is this is one of the areas where we will continue to see increased interest, and hoping that the times ahead will continue to realize the importance of women's health, more importantly, the opportunity which today underlies in solving for this as a first mover in the space.
Right. So you definitely see that this startups in this space has been building on advocacy, awareness, and empathy, and which is also kind of creating personalized solution is definitely interesting for investors, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a combination of all of that.
Yeah.
It's a combination of creating, as I said, a non-judgmental approach to solving for it.
When we look at tier 1 cities, there's still a lot of education and awareness, but if we look at deeper down in India, tier 2, 3 cities, the problem is even larger, right? Like, it's such a big problem that women are not even aware of symptoms. They're not even aware about the disease. They're not even aware of the lifestyle diseases, which we are just talking about, fertility, PCOS, hormonal influctuation, all of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one point of view which we are seeing time and again play out, and a case in point, let's say Gynoveda, when they opened their first fertility clinic in Bombay, it was not imaginable that people will come in from distance. People will come in from tier 2 towns, because what it's telling us is that there is a need state that exists. There is a very high propensity to pay. I think they also believe in the solution. Right? They saw the content online. They went through the content. They believe that this can solve for their fertility issues. They made the effort to come into the fertility clinic. And with the kind of conversions we've seen, it's also telling us that these people have very high propensity to pay. Right? Yeah. They stick to the course. They follow the regime because they are determined to make it happen. Right. I think the tier 2, tier 3 is no different than a tier 1. Right. Possibly even more opportunity lies in the tier 2, tier 3, because the healthcare ecosystem there is not as developed and as recognized and organized, I would say. Right. Where women are trying to solve for some of these issues. Right. Maybe the taboo subject is tad higher as compared to some of the tier 1 or metros. But the need state and the want and the desire to solve for and looking for a solution desperately that exists. And today, there are families who come in from those tier 2, tier 3 towns into these fertility clinics, which kind of runs, to solve for the problems they are facing. Yeah. I think what we've also seen very interestingly is, when you talk to the larger women's health community and startup and founders who are building in this space, each one of them is seeing greater interest from tier 2, tier 3 cities and towns. I think that recognition of women's health and very different approach, be it screening, right? Or be it the fact that cervical cancer is becoming an important and a very large problem to solve for. Right. People there understand that there are certain vaccines, like an HPV vaccine, which they need to take. the education has already happened.
Right.
The awareness has already got built up.
Right.
Now, if you're able to create a very good funnel where
Right.
there is empathy, where there is advocacy, and more importantly, helping them understand this is a journey,
Right.
there is a deep, deep need and the propensity to pay.
Yeah.
Startups who are meaningfully able to stitch that story together,
Right.
they have solutions which are innovative and solving for the problem the right way.
Right.
I think there is a lot to unfold in tier 2 and tier 3 times.
No, absolutely. I remember even Rachna, the founder of Gynoveda, she mentioning some of the case studies that, people have come down from tier 2, 3 cities, and for them it's huge, right? Because they were able to get some support with the empathy and care, which is not usually the case in tier 2, 3 cities, right? Like you typically visit your local gynae and that's it.
Absolutely. I think the recognition is there.
Right.
What possibly we see the next few years unfold is more and more presence in the tier 2, tier 3 cities and towns, more content being focused on that. I think this is such a highly involved and the emotional bar on the subject is so high as far as the consumers are concerned. I think baking that into the journey, be it in terms of talking to them in the language they understand,
right,
having more and more content, not just talking to women, but also to their family, right? Because family plays a role. The reality is that where they do influence the choices women make when it comes to women's health. I think it will take a lot to get to a stage where women are taking charge of their own health in their own hands. And, I think that's the North Star. Most of the startups and the founders building in this space are chasing. I think till that time, it is upon the onus is on the companies who are trying to disrupt this space. Right. Of course, there are companies which exist in this space, including the large pharma companies, Gynax, to also look at things and issues which are popping up today. Right. And given the consumers have moved to bus stops ahead of asking and demanding solutions around it, right, the more the healthcare ecosystem is able to do, right, I do believe that the opportunity is multifold and megafold to be unearthed in the future. No, absolutely agree on that. So, what is your criteria when you're investing in the startup? And also, there are a lot of bias when it comes to female founders, right? And I wanted to understand, how do you evaluate that? Do you prefer male founders or female founder, or do you really evaluate that, number of women in the startup, or it has to have a male founder as well, because they are gender biased in female-led startups? I think, if you look at it a little, first, let me answer the question around if somebody's building in women's health, right? What are some of the things we look for? I think what becomes important is not just talking about the problem that exists, right, but solutions which have to be absolutely solving for it. At an early stage, when we are looking for that early PMF that exists, right, what we're looking for is the solution on a very high efficacy. Right. And because that's a large opportunity all of us are looking at, right? I think second is what eventually is the purpose why a startup founder is doing what they're doing. And the third and the very important is, have they understood the consumer beyond the demographics very well, right? Is there a very strong understanding of consumer psychography? Because as I said, the women's health journey is so interesting and new in their very unique way. Either it's a new area, right, either it is a very new form of discovery on the healthcare side, right, today, or there are certain set of consumers who've tried all and everything they can, but they've not found a solution, right? Now, to that desperate but extremely frustrated consumer, right, you need to build that right funnel and the journey. So I think it encompasses all these three elements. Ultimately, what we're looking for is what is that this founder is wanting to build within women's health, right? Let me take you a case in point, right? We invested in Gynoveda very early, right, pretty much almost pre-revenue. What we saw is it was a power-packed founder team, right? Vishal, who came in from a very strong digital know-how, Rachna, who comes from a consumer understanding, Dr. Aarti, who had a very deep solution and hence the efficacy, right, in that combination, right? And we have another very interesting company on Inito. Now, while Ayush and Varun are engineers, right? What made us to choose to partner with Inito is the fact that they had spent a lot of years understanding the fertility journey. It was not when somebody has conceived, but to say the moment somebody is starting to think of conception, to when they have not been able to conceive after, let's say, first 12 months of trying, what do they go through?
Right.
What is that needs to be solved for in terms of information, and what is the convenience they are seeking? Right. Obviously, Inito has the larger vision in mind to build the whole DIY diagnostic play, but within fertility. Right? Now, when they look at the new products, they're saying because their data, because their understanding of the consumer is showing that a lot of women actually end up conceiving, and Inito somewhere has played a role. How do you then look at solving for the next phase, which is things like beta HCG tracking, things like early pregnancy detection? So there is a very clear understanding of the journey which we look for. Of course, the bar on efficacy is very, very high. And the third is, do you understand, what the founders are building towards? What's the larger purpose of building a woman's health?
Typically, also founders' background.
Yes, I would say, that is the pedigree which becomes important as well. I think your question on female founders and male founders, I think we've got a mix when it comes to women's health. Of course, in the larger portfolio, we've got, very proudly, let's say if I take the fund 2, we've got more than 50% female founders. So we don't make a choice on a particular gender. I think there is a larger value of good which we want to build towards. We don't have biases against a particular gender when it comes to founders. We've backed, founders irrespective of, it's more about what they're building and why they're building. And that's reflective in the Fund 2 portfolio. In fact, very interestingly, very early on in some of the startups, we've seen that the women leadership coming to play, right? And that's resonating across the portfolio, even in some of the Fund 3 companies. I think that's what we want to continue to be building towards. Very interestingly, Inito is run by male founders, but they understand the women's health. I think the empathy with which they are building the community is also very interesting. So it is not about one gender against the other. I think it's more about who's your consumer, and do you understand that? If you have that deep understanding, especially when it comes to women's health, that'll allow you to build a larger business. That'll allow you to talk to the larger consumer set. That'll allow you for users and consumers to have trust in you. And that's what stems from being solution focused. And to test out the efficacy of the solution, one needs to be very consumer focused and think everything consumer backwards. That's what I would say is important for us to look for and back founders building in this space.
Yeah, and I think India has been overall consumer brand space because of the demographic power, right? And do you also feel that price strategy plays a huge role as well, because India is price sensitive market? What's your take on when you're building in terms of technology? We're also seeing a lot of interest, like, how AI is overall integrated in everything in our life. And I think which will play a very big role in healthcare as well, and women health too, right? How do you see that evolving? And when we talk about even masses covering tier 2, 3 cities, how do we, fill that digital divide gap overall when we talk about Indian landscape?
I think answering the first question on what we've seen is, look, if somebody is going through a very deep need state in healthcare, there is enough propensity to pay for that solution, right? We're not talking of the age group today, which is largely serviced by the public health infrastructure. They are still about subsistence. They are still largely dependent on subsidies coming in from public infra. But there is a large and even larger set of consumers today who have pockets, and more importantly, the willingness to pay to solve for these healthcare issues. So till the time your solution is solving for the need state, till the time founders and startups have understood the need state very, very deeply, and the solutions are high efficacy, I think they will find currency. The consumers will open their wallets to spend on. I think the second point around tier 2, tier 3, I think tech plays a very large role. To the earlier point we were discussing on the need for advocacy, the need for empathy, the need for having a non-judgmental approach, community coming together to
Right.
play a role when it comes to not only diagnosing what's happening in as a problem, but also continuously interacting. And I'm not
Right.
necessarily saying substituting the gynac the consumer is visiting,
Right.
but almost complementary skills where you are educating a consumer about on while she's not at the gynac, when she
Right.
is living her life outside the gynac's clinic, how she should manage the lifestyle, right? When you're talking about very personalized solutions, because everybody has their own journey,
Right.
it's not about just the journey. They are coming to you looking for a solution at very different stages of the problem.
Right.
I think tech will and has played a role. Today, one of the big things one of the big needle movers that happened at Gynoveda was around how do you create the period bot, right? Today,
Yeah.
period bot, which not only talks to, by the way, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 1 across, it also talks to international consumers. While Gynoveda today does not serve that audience, women just want to understand and be more educated about what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Now, earlier, as opposed to what was happening, was they were trying to address issues like weight gain. They were trying to get issues around facial hair, etc.
Right.
Today, if with the period bot being in play, today Gynoveda is meaningfully able to talk to them with the right information source from them, able to
Right.
tell them what's happening in their body.
Right.
There's a lot of awareness and education building that happens. Tech plays a role.
Right.
I think tech also plays a role in enhancing the journeys.
Right.
If you're able to meaningfully spot trends, if you're able to say, can I create personalized journeys to talk to each one of them?
Right.
If you're able to draw insights from community and talk about and look at what are the real problems women are facing,
Right.
that could almost be your innovation engine,
Yeah.
right? Today, you don't need to look at this as saying, hey, it's a very well understood menarche to menopause. There are some episodes, there are some generic wellness requirements. Let them feed you in on. We do see the sense of building this digital first.
Right.
We do see them having a very meaningful role of tech being charted out in their growth journey.
Right.
And I think that's going to be even more and more stronger as we move forward on the women's health journey.
So I guess we discussed a lot on overall Indian market, right? And one of your portfolio companies, Inito, which is focused on the US market. What made you believe in the global market?
I think, when you look at healthcare as an
Right.
opportunity, one is, of course, the need state. What's also important is to look at the existing healthcare ecosystem.
Right.
Case in point being Inito. Now, today, the reality is in India, there are many gynacs who are available, very accessible.
Right.
But if you really look at global markets and starting with US, of course, more and more women and couples are trying to conceive very late in their life, which is causing a lot of issues around not being able to naturally conceive within first 12 months.
Right.
But what's also important to understand is access to gynacs in that market.
Right.
To give you a data point, there are only 500 fertility clinics in a market like US. It's fairly spread out. So access to gynacs when you need them
Right.
is difficult, which is resulting into long queues outside and long waiting period. Also, in the first 6 to 9 months, so once you've started interacting with a gynac, they will give you some lifestyle changes to be able to try and still conceive naturally.
Right.
But if you really look at it from a consumer lens, the anxiety levels keep popping up as month on month they're trying to conceive and they're not able to.
Right.
Now, the choice really they have is while they work with their respective gynacs, they also need to track the actual hormone levels. And when I say actual hormone levels, so that there is clear call to action, right? So it's not just tracking testosterone, it's about estrogen, it's about progesterone, PFH, etc. What becomes important then is,
Right.
can I create a journey where they have access to this information? Can I have a product which gives them access to that information without having the hassle of waiting for in the long queue outside the gynacs to be talking to them? And also visiting gynacs time and again, going through the painful process of giving the sample, tracking the information, going back to the gynac for the call to action.
Right.
That's what Inito is solving for. So it's very important when you look at this opportunity, not only from the need state, but also saying, how conducive is the ecosystem? Is
Right.
the ecosystem creating and are the opportunities stemming up from there? That's what we saw in Inito, right? Also, it also results in a higher propensity to pay, right? That's why Inito, when they went to the US market after testing out the product in the ecosystem, now the fast-paced growth because they've understood the consumer so well, they've tested out the product in
Right.
in an environment like India. I think that is where it's contributed significantly from their growth standpoint. When we invested, when they were very early in their GTM on the US side,
Right.
there were very clearly emerging signs of saying the need state's high, what they're doing and solving for. Somewhere the consumer, and when we did consumer surveys, when we spoke to consumers who had used into products
Right.
in that market, it was very evident that there is a deep need state that exists.
Right.
There is today no solutions to solve for that information which the consumer is seeking. They are not just looking for satellite view of the information. They want clear call to action. They believe that Inito as a product
Right.
could solve for it. And hence, yeah, that made us believe in Inito, and it's been a great ride so far.
I think it was great. We are almost done. So, my last question is, how do you see women's health, femtech landscape evolving in coming years, and what is the role of venture capital firms in this growth?
No, I think, as I said, today is the best time to be building in women's health. There is, as I said, a lot of awareness about it.
Right.
More importantly, founders are building truly innovative solutions, be it on the diagnostic side, be it on the solution side,
Right.
and solving for this. As we see both these trajectories pan out, a larger opportunity unfold in the future. That makes us bullish about it. On your question around the role the venture capital will play, I think we've already started to play a large role by not only investing and believing in women's health,
Right.
and there is, as I said, increasing interest coming in from all different facets across stages. As we continue to see that truly translating into investments, we will see a very accelerated growth of women's health across the different spectrum.
Right.
And that's what our belief is. Sure. I think one very understated role community like FemTech India is playing. It's not just creating awareness. I think what you folks are also doing is bringing to life stories of startup founders, bringing them in the forefront and talking about some very interesting insights on not only why they are doing so, but how they are doing so. Sharing success stories of how startup founders have meaningfully changed lives of consumers in this space, I think will go a long way in educating the larger society, and more importantly, will also drive more and more entrepreneurial action into this. I'm grateful and thankful to some of the awareness building sessions you're doing, almost dedicating yourself to this space. It also strengthens and reinforces what I was saying around women's health. Time has started. It is not just against startups,
Right.
but also the larger ecosystem, including pharma companies, including
Right.
existing service providers who recognize and appreciate that it takes something very, very different. It will take almost something very different to create women's health of the future the way all of us together are envisaging. So thank you for taking that lead, and look forward to more and more conversations.
Thank you so much, Ankur. It was such an insightful conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. As I said, very bullish on this space. So yeah, thanks for having me.